why shouldn't we try a pilot program of legalization? The first congressperson ever to suggest this. Now we have like 4 or 5 congresspeople we're talking about it. So this is the start of an enormously important discussion that I predict will culminate eventually in legalization of marijuana, just like the very first discussion of gay rights bill eventually culminated in gay rights, but it's been a long, long process. It still isn't over for gay rights, and we have a long, long process to go on this marijuana. Speaking specifically of the Indiana bill, there's a lot of details about it. People may or may not be totally satisfied with. People should realize it doesn't do anything to the current medical marijuana system. It does not put any taxes on medical marijuana. But it creates a whole new system for non-medical marijuana, pretty much like the alcohol beverages control system. This bill, I predict, will not be signed by Governor Schwarzenegger this year. And we have no illusions that this bill is going to be passed right here and now. This is the first step in a process. Consider it a prototype bill. If there are things that people don't like about it, if they think the tax level is inappropriate, or if they think there should be certain other kinds of regulations regarding production or something like that, bring the suggestions up now, because this bill is going to come back with modifications and changes till we eventually converge on something that we can agree on. And it's going to be a long process. The potency of an oral preparation. The one thing you should know is, even though you may feel terribly debilitated by an overdose, and you can take, and there are reports in the literature of people who've been debilitated for 24 hours solid by taking too much marijuana, and people will panic. They think they have to go, to the emergency room. They do not have to go to the emergency room. There is no treatment for this. The emergency room, the treatment is to know that in fact this will pass. There's never going to fake overdose or overdose that causes permanent adverse effects. Just have, unpleasant as this is, it will pass away. It might be good to have a friend there to talk to you. The emergency room can do nothing for you, okay? And other than cause legal problems. Beyond that, beyond adverse effects and real effect, another effect people should know about is, well, actually, let's see if I can find it here, because I can never remember this list. Amongst the physiological effects of marijuana, marijuana is a mental drug. It doesn't have many physical effects that are very obvious, but it does have 5 basic effects, and physically. All right, what are they? Dryness of the throat. And that is not necessarily because of smoking either. It can happen when you eat it too. That is an effect of THC, the active ingredient. Redness of the eye, which is sometimes used as a telltale sign of intoxication by some cops. That's not terribly reliable, and people can develop a tolerance to that. Chronic users do. But it's another symptom. Third one, this is an important one to know, a lot of people know, speeding of the heartbeat, or tachycardia it's called. This is one of the most reliable effects of marijuana, is speeding the heartbeat. And people should be aware of that. Now, is speeding the heartbeat bad for you? Well, is playing tennis bad for you? Is running upstairs bad for you? No, not generally, unless, however, you have a particular heart problem. And certain people who have, severe heart problems and angina, for example, do have to watch out for this. And in some cases need to avoid marijuana entirely because it could precipitate a heart attack. These are people who are probably likely to have a heart attack anyhow. but it's important to realize that about the heartbeat. The other physical effects, of course, are reducing interocular pressure in your eye. That's why it's good for glaucoma. And finally, dilation of the upper bronchial passages of the lungs, which is why it is helpful for asthmatics if you can get beyond the problem with smoke, because asthmatics have a problem with smoke. But if they avoid, but the THC itself improves helps relieve asthmatic attacks and actually dilates the bronchial passages that constrict in asthma attacks. So some people actually find marijuana pretty beneficial for asthma, and especially if it's taken in a non-smoke form. Now, speaking of non-smoke forms, so there's additional chapters in here on preparation and dosage, and there are alternative dosage forms, of course, to smoking. And aside from eating, there is vaporization. As you may or may not know, California NORML helped sponsor some of the original studies that investigated marijuana vaporization. Does anybody here have any questions about what marijuana vaporization is? I mean, does everybody know what vaporization is? Basically heating marijuana to a point below which combustion occurs, but at about a temperature actually of around 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Causes the evaporation of the tar, the medically active ingredients. They're on the surface of the leaf. They evaporate at temperatures of about that. But the leaf itself doesn't combust, and it doesn't produce smoke and tar, all of those ugly things that are actually suspected to be causes of lung cancer and respiratory disease, and the problem when you smoke cigarettes, for example. So it is possible to, if you have a device that heats marijuana appropriately, to evaporate the medically active vapor and eliminate about 99% or more of the toxins. And you can buy these at, I don't know if you can buy them anywhere in San Diego, but I know you have a crackdown on paraphernalia here too, but I'm sure you can get them in Orange County and LA and everywhere else. Vaporization does deliver the effects instantly, just like inhalation does. And that's an important advantage, especially if you're feeling an attack of some sort about to come on, an epileptic fit, or if you have a lack of appetite and you can't eat something anyhow, it's much more convenient to inhale something. And, so we highly recommend vaporizers. But if you want to cook with it, we have instructions about that too, and there's a lot that they said about cooking and making oral preparations of cannabis. There's important things to know. The most important being that if you're going to cook with cannabis, it's best to prepare it in oil or butter or alcohol, because the THC, the active ingredient, is lipophilic, as they say. It loves fat. It's dissolvable in fats. And also it will wash off in alcohol, but it will not wash off in water. So, a lot of people don't know this, and they try to make marijuana tea. They'll take some marijuana bud, and they'll stick it in some boiling water and drink the tea. And this is a way to really waste marijuana. About 95% of the THC will get completely lost if you try to boil marijuana in water. It just doesn't work. Despite this fact, I mean, you might think even experts, so-called experts, are sometimes unaware of this. I was shocked to find out the Dutch medical cannabis program. The Netherlands has an official government medical cannabis program. They actually have a government supplier, a government-approved producer of medical marijuana, a farm called Bedricam, producing high-grade cannabis for several years now, and the program is administered by the Dutch